All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, we're going to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bashem, Yahushai, Bashem, Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Shalom to the Akim and if you walk, who may be listening. It's your brother Batakallah from the GMS camp here in Chicago, coming back at you with another lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bashem, Yahushai. Lord willing, this is an edifying lesson. All right, the title of this lesson is You Have to Believe in the Blessing that the Lord has given us. All right, and hey, man, we're blessed to be in this truth. We're blessed to have access to this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, which is the highest form of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding on the earth. All right, we're blessed to be able to have access to the Spirit of the Lord, and you got to believe in those things, man, and you got to trust in the Lord and know that regardless of what situation you find yourself in, everything is always on the up and up. Everything is always to the good, and that the Lord is going to make something happen, man. All right. And it's important to grasp that now while we're still in the green tree, because, as we've been mentioning and are going to continue to mention, eventually things aren't going to be the way they are. Things are going to be much worse. Things are going to be very, very contested out here on all aspects of life. And the only thing that's going to deliver people out of those calamities and troubles is Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. If the Lord is dealing with you, if the Lord ain't dealing with you, then you're just gonna get devoured by all of the madness and folly that's going on out here, and violence and all of the above. Okay, but for those of us who are doing this work, that those of us that are in this truth, that are working for the Lord, you got to believe that the Lord got you, man. You got to believe that the things that the Lord is blessing us with and has given us up to this point is going to be enough to get us to where we want to be at, which is on that chariot. All right. But we're going to get these precepts, Lord willing, to be edifying. This is Proverbs chapter 18 and verse 16. It says, a man's gift maketh room for him and bringeth him before great men. All right. Now, we're in captivity in this society. We're at the bottom. That the Lord, that's where the Lord has us and starts us at. And, while we're in the world, we got to deal with living like that, but the Lord had mercy on us and made us aware of this truth and allowed us to serve him. And, throughout the process of doing that, the Lord raises you up level to level to level. If you're staying diligent in the work, if you're doing what you're supposed to do, if you're studying, if you're changing, if you're putting off the old man, over time you're going to change and get better. All right, through the spirit of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. And those improvements, hey man, the Lord will put you in some good positions because of that, man. All right, but you got to believe in that, man. All right, and you got to know that even when we're going through uncertain times or rough situations, that at the end all of those things are going to be to our benefit and are going to place us where we need to be placed at. And also, you got to have a mindset of whatever we have to go through here doesn't matter, because this place is going to get destroyed anyway. All right, and the beautiful thing about that is, even though this place is going to get destroyed, the Lord is still going to allow us to spoil these people and to get some form of get back on this side. It might not necessarily be full rulership, putting our enemies into captivity on this side, because when Yahushua comes back, all of that's going to happen. But just because we can't, really deal with our enemies the way we want to, doesn't mean that the Lord is not going to exalt us in ways that still, that still jack them up in a certain sense. The Lord's still going to show who he's dealing with and who he's not, and these niggas are going to have to deal with that. All right, all these people that come against us, all these people that talk shit, all these people that scoff, the Lord is going to exalt us in their face too on this side. All right, and you got to believe that, because these people believe in their bullshit and all this hatred and all this shit that they be kicking. They wholeheartedly are bought into that shit, and they're going to get fucking destroyed. These people are wholeheartedly bought into being Muslim, wholeheartedly bought into being Christian and whatever other bullshit they subscribe to, man. That's why we got to be steadfast and we got to be immovable in our faith in Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, because that's what's going to deliver us and that's what's going to separate us from these people. This is Sirach 10:30. It says, the poor man is honored for his skill and the rich man is honored for his riches. He that is honored in poverty, how much more in riches? And he that is dishonorable in riches, how much more in poverty? All right. And this is letting you know that, you know, starting at the bottom and then being exalted by the Lord, that's really the best possible scenario, even though you have to go through, you know, the struggles of being on the bottom. You know, at the end of the day, like it says, who he was honored, the poor man who was honored for his skill, that's a big deal, man. That's something that money can't buy. That's why the Lord is putting us through these things. And that's why honor comes before humility, because there's a different result that you get from having to go through that humility and get through that, you know, and then in the end to be exalted. See, these devils are a perfect example. I say it all the time. These devils are a perfect example of individuals who receive their honor before having to, you know, go through the humiliation process, to go through humility. And that's why they rule the way they rule. That's why they don't value anything. That's why they are so destructive, and, you know, other reasons as well. But, you know, because these devils were created to be the wicked, make no mistake. But this is the result of exalting somebody who doesn't deserve it. That's what we're seeing out here every day. All right. And the Lord is teaching us that. And, you know, us seeing that is a part of our process of humility. You know what I'm saying? And it's all going to be to the good at the end. And you got to believe that. All right. This Sirach 1:11, it says, wisdom lifteth up the head of him that is of low degree and maketh him to sit among great men. And that's why we got to believe in this blessing that the Lord has gave us, because this wisdom is nothing to it's nothing to be. You don't want to be ungrateful for this wisdom. All right. This wisdom is the highest form of wisdom on the earth. And it can really it has an effect on your life and the way you live, the way people see you. And once again, we don't care about these people. We don't care about anything on this side, really, outside of the brotherhood and serving the Lord, because this place is going to get destroyed, man. We fully understand that. But once again, we're here. We have to use the world and not abuse it while we're here in order to get through, you know, what we're going through. All right. And hey, the Lord gave us this wisdom to be able to fight that fight. And it's the best weapon that you have in the fight, man. It's greater than anything that these devils got. It's greater than anything that these wicked ass niggas got. And, you know, if the Lord be with you, who can be against you? And you really got to understand and believe that, man. All right. Especially with the times that we're coming into, because things are not going to look good on paper, man. All right. We're not going to be able to, we're going to have faith without, I mean, you know, we know the Lord is coming back, but, you know, we're going to see that the day it happens. Until then, we got to have faith that it's going to happen. And that's why we're doing this work. And we already see the Lord moving, you know, in the spiritual sense, because the Lord has opened our spiritual eye. All right. We see the Lord moving with all the signs and the prophecies coming to pass. We see the Lord moving in our own lives. All right. But the average person, they can't see those things. They have to physically see Yahweh Shai to believe him. They got to physically see Yahweh to believe him. And at the end of the day, you know, they're going to be destroyed for having that mentality. All right. But this is the book of Daniel, chapter 2 and verse 46. It says, then the king Nebuchadnezzar fell upon his face and worshipped Daniel and commanded that they should offer an oblation and sweet odors unto him. The king answered unto Daniel and said, of a truth it is that your power is the power of powers and Lord of kings and a revealer of secrets, seeing thou couldest reveal the secret. Why? Because Nebuchadnezzar had a dream. None of his so-called wise men who were idolaters could interpret the dream, but Daniel was able to interpret the dream through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. And his ability to do that, you know, caused the Lord to put a spirit on Nebuchadnezzar to raise Daniel up into being his chief, one of his chief princes in the provinces of Babylon. All right, we're gonna keep going. And he also served the Medes and the Persians as well after Babylon fell, because of his abilities that the Lord blessed him with. All right, but let's keep reading. It says, then the king made Daniel a great man, and gave him many great gifts, and made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon, and chief of the governors over all the wise men of Babylon. Why? Because Daniel trusted in Yahweh Bashem Yahushai first and foremost. He was willing to risk his life to acknowledge and serve the Lord, and to do things according to the way that the Lord said to do them. All right. And the Lord blessed him with the ability to interpret those dreams and do all the other things that he was able to do. And that caused, Nebuchadnezzar, his captor, the person who had him and the rest of our people in captivity, to raise him up to second in command in his kingdom. All right. Because of what the Lord blessed him with, and because of his faith. And we got to remember that. All right. And this is not the only account. We're going to get one more account that's similar in Genesis, but the scriptures is filled with accounts like this, man. All right. Yeah, we're in captivity, but the Lord is not going to forsake those who serve him in truth and in sincerity, man. All right. In the end, everything is going to be to the good for us, man. Period. This is Genesis 41:38. It says, and Pharaoh said unto his servants, can we find such an one as this is, a man in whom the spirit of Yahweh is? All right, and notice that the pattern that these people that the Lord has set over us, they're always pointing out that these men of the Lord have the spirit of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai on them. That's what is causing these men to be raised up. All right, and put in more of a favorable position in the situation that they're in. And once again, remember, these men have the mindset of serving the Lord. They don't care about the various kingdoms that they was living through. Daniel didn't care about the Babylonians. He was cared about Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. He was trying to get to the kingdom. All right, but that's the mindset you got to have. All right, and the Lord gonna bless. If you doing the right things, the Lord is gonna bless, man. But back in this is Genesis 41:38. It says, and Pharaoh said unto his servants, can we find such a one as this is, a man in whom the spirit of Yahweh is? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, for as much as Yahweh hath showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. All right, why? Because once again, now Joseph was in jail for an extended period of time, years. All right. He got put in jail for being accused of committing adultery with Pharaoh's wife, but he didn't actually do it. The bitch got mad and lied on him because he wouldn't do it. And they end up throwing him in jail for that. And he didn't lose faith in the Lord. He didn't get bitter. He just dealt with what he had to deal with. The Lord ended up making his time in jail more easy, because Joseph ended up finding favor with one of the people that was in charge in there in the jail, and then Joseph ended up being able to interpret a dream for Pharaoh, and he got raised up out of that jail, and we about to see what happened. All right, but it says, and Pharaoh said unto Joseph, for as much as Yahweh showeth thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou. So the Lord had blessed Joseph so much with wisdom, with the spirit of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, that Pharaoh took him, a man from jail, and set him up to be the ruler of Egypt, basically. Because these kings, these heathen kings, they just want to fucking chill and have a party, man. They don't they not actual rulers. They're just niggas. All right, but this Pharaoh set up Joseph to basically rule his whole kingdom while he sat in the back and fucked around. But it's all through the Lord, man. All right, the Joseph was in jail. The Lord set him up over the whole land of Egypt, and that is what delivered the rest of his family, our forefather Jacob, and the rest of the patriarchs of the 12 tribes, All right. That's what delivered them out of the famine in that day, because Joseph was in charge in Egypt and was able to provide, food and lands and things for them. All right. And that's why we here today. But it's all through the blessings and the spirit of the Lord, and because Joseph didn't lose faith, he didn't get offended in the Lord when he had to go through the rough patches of his life. He just dealt with it, man. This is verse 41, and he kept his faith and knew that everything was going to be cool. This is and that's easier said than done, all right? But you got to do it, and you got to pray for the strength to be able to do that. All right, that's why you pray that the Lord don't take the spirit away from you and that he keep you in this truth no matter what. This is Genesis 41 and 41. It says, and Pharaoh said unto Joseph, see, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put it upon Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. And he made him to ride in the second chariot which he had. And they cried before him, bowed the knee, and he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zephanath. I always struggle with this. Zephnathapinah, and gave him to wife Asenath, the daughter of Potipherath, priest of On. And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. So from being in jail to being the ruler of Egypt, basically. All right, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. And once again, these men weren't. Daniel wasn't excited to be a Babylonian. Joseph wasn't excited to be an Egyptian. These was men of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. They was excited to serve the Lord. All right. And that's the mindset we gotta have. And hey, if it's in the cards for us to be blessed like those men was blessed, it's to help our brothers. That's another thing that they did. They was blessed to be put in those positions, and they looked out for Jake, man. Like I said, Joseph is the reason why our line continued, and the 12 patriarchs were able to continue to live through that famine that happened at that time, because it was fucked up out there. And Egypt was really the only place that had food stored and was prepared to deal with it, because the Lord blessed Joseph with the wisdom to interpret the dream and see what was about to happen. But the rest of the lands round about, they was fucked up, man. This this whole situation is how one of the reasons why Egypt was able to raise and become such a superpower at that time, because people had to relinquish lands and had to sell themselves into servitude just to have food, because Egypt was the only place that had it. All right. So you got to know that the Lord has blessed us with the highest blessing that we can receive, and that will be exalted in due time. Whatever we got to go through is for our betterment. All right. But Lord willing, that was an edifying lesson. With that, we're going to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai Bashem Akakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Shalom to the Akim and a few Akwath who may be listening. And Lord willing, this was an edifying lesson, man. We almost out of here, so let's just keep enduring. Let's keep a positive mindset. Let's stay prayed up. All right, and pray that the Lord continues to keep us. But with that, we're going to give all praises, honor, and